Hi everyone. I'm hoping some of you might want to come on a seed sowing journey with me, and I just wanted to quickly chat about kit that you need to get started, or just what I use anyway, because I thought it might be helpful, and then you can go and buy it in advance. I'm probably going to be starting the bulk of my seed sowing mid-Valentine's Day. That's usually the best sort of time. You don't want to start too soon, because then you end up with loads of plants that it's not warm enough to put them in the ground, but you've got to find space for them in the greenhouse, and it's just a nightmare. And also light levels are better then, so it's best to wait sort of mid-February, March time to get going with the bulk of seeds. But I just thought I'd chat quickly about what you need to get. So obviously compost. I use Silver Grow, as I've said before, which is a really lovely, I'll show you a scoop of it, sort of quite fine, peat-free. It's actually multi-purpose, but you can use, you use it for seeds, you use it for cuttings, you use it for potting on. It's just great for everything. And that's what I generally use for my seeds. But I have used seed compost in the past, and actually at the moment, because obviously I appreciate you can't get things so readily, there is always Amazon. But if you go to the garden centre, you'll find seed sown compost, which is really good because it's very, very fine. You don't want to bury seeds in a grave. You want to, because often they're very, very small themselves. So they don't, you need the compost to be quite fine. You want it to be sterile, because you don't want weed seeds in there that might germinate and compete with the seeds that you're sowing, because they'll definitely come out on top. Weeds are brutes. So yeah, using your own compost is a bit tricky with that, with seed sowing. And you want to make sure it doesn't have too many nutrients in it, because seeds, have most of what they need in their little hard shell. And with a bit of water, not necessarily that much light actually, often the bulk of seeds will germinate quite happily without much light. But yeah, so they've got most of what they need in their little, cell, in their little shell. So if you give them something that's too rich, like a compost that's got added John Innes or anything that's too rich, then it's a bit like giving a baby, double chocolate ice cream or something. They might like it, but it's not good for them. So yeah, so that's the compost thing. The next thing is the trays. There are so many different options you can go with. I use various things. The good old 9cm pot, which I cover with a plastic bag. These are just little mini IKEA ones. You want to cover most of the seeds that you sow, because it forms a lovely sort of microclimate for them. It keeps the moisture in, and it keeps them nice and warm. And so yeah, you're either covering with a plastic bag like that if you're using something like that, or I've got one of these, which I think I've shown you before, which have a little lid, and these sit on a kind of windowsill propagator. You can get them online. Crocus, I think I got mine from, also Amazon, I'm sure would have them. And the bases, the little trays that they sit in, which go neatly on a windowsill, can either be, you either plug them in and they have heat, bottom heat, which is quite useful, or they're just simple trays to catch any water and things. And you, so that's another option. The third option is the half seed tray, it's called, and this is, I would always try, if you can afford it, to go for the slightly more rigid plastic, just because, I use mine over and over and over again. If you go for flimsy things, this is really, these plugs are really quite flimsy, but they're very useful. I'll come on to that in a minute. But if you go for a seed tray in that sort of material, they just crack and break, and it's really frustrating. So I would go, and the thing with this size, these three sizes, is you actually don't need to sow a lot more seeds than this. You know, the big seed trays are really for people that are growing hundreds and thousands of seedlings and have big polytunnels and all the rest of it. So if you're just growing at home for yourself or for the garden or whatever, then this is usually more than enough. Again, they come with a little lid. So these are called standard half size seed trays. The other thing I do quite a lot of is I use a rigid seed tray base. This is just a normal seed tray with holes in it, and I put an insert in it, and these are the ones I probably use most often, and these are the 40 cell plug trays. Again, Amazon, garden centres, they all do them. They all have one hole in the bottom, and basically if you can be really good about sowing your seed as thinly as possible, perhaps doing a couple of seeds in each plug, then it just means